Right, thank you very much, Maggie, and welcome from me. Welcome for those who've come actually long and short distances to London, and our wonderful London weather. We've had in the course of the last 10 days, we've had summer sunshine, followed by autumn drizzle, followed by winter snow, and here we are at the spring convention. So things must improve from now on. So I've put down 3 themes for my talk, and there's quite a lot of material in here, so I'll try not to rush through too much. As we said before, we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end, and then later on in the day, please grab me. So there we are, a quick look at what's been going on in BCS in the last year, what's going to be happening in the coming year, and then about my residential theme. So the first point I put up here is maintaining funding in difficult times. The difficult times I'll deal with first. The climate in which we gain our revenues has moved against us because of the recession. No news there, I'm sure, wherever you work, exactly the same. It's pretty bad for us for particular reasons. A lot of learning and development in the IT world is funded ultimately by the government, maybe directly by the government, but ultimately by the government. And obviously it's one of those things which the government have cut in the early years of austerity. So that's meant a drop-off of business in the areas that we actually make revenues for BCS. It's also true, and this came out yesterday in David Clark's talk to the AGM, that actually it's worse than that in the sense that margins are squeezed as well. So we don't directly provide training, we provide services to training companies. They are under a great deal of pressure, they transmit that pressure to us, so margins are squeezed. And in some areas, the competitive market is much bigger. One particular mention was ITIL, the ITIL market. We used to have largely to ourselves, we don't anymore, it's a much more competitive market. Also worth mentioning, again, I'm picking these points up from yesterday, is about ECDL. ECDL is also, European Computer Driving License, has always been a big source of revenue for BCS. I don't need to tell you that the world of Microsoft Office is, what shall I say, not the hottest topic in the world now. And so we've got to anticipate that teaching people to use Office, which is what ECDL is largely about, is reaching a kind of plateau and possibly end of life. So we need to find something to replace that in the longer term. We're doing quite well at the moment, but we can't expect that to continue. So that's the sort of bad news. The good news is that we did maintain last year in a difficult financial climate for the Institute. We did maintain branch funding. Excuse me. So that's the good news. We've also managed to keep our membership numbers, while not rising, at least stable. And that's quite an achievement. If you are a member of other professional bodies or you look at their statistics, they will generally have suffered under the recession a decline. We are maintaining membership. We have to drive membership up, and that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today. I'll certainly be talking about with my theme of student engagement. But at least it's stable. We've also taken cuts at the centre. At the HQ, staffing numbers are down. We also dipped into reserves in the last year. So there's been some pain at the centre. I hope it hasn't impacted on branches. I'm sure you'll tell me if it has, but there have been a number of redundancies and cuts at the centre. One of the big things we did last year, and I'm just coming on to my second bullet point here, is set up learning and development. And this is confusing because I know we have a specialist group, Learning and Development, but it is Learning and Development PLC, the company into which we have transferred the revenue earning activities of BCS. So that was all set up during the course of last year. It went very smoothly in terms of transferring the business. But there have been startup costs in terms of getting that business up and running, getting new sales teams appointed, and starting to re-earn the income we need back for our activities, member activities. We are, with the new learning development, we are concentrating on overseas markets. No surprise there, because the UK market is still in recession and will continue to be so for some years. We're looking for growth in business abroad, and just one example of that is that at the end of this month we have our first conference in the Gulf. So we're looking to pick up both membership and business in our Gulf overseas section. But that's only one of various initiatives looking for new business. I put there governance review. We felt that we should, having set up learning and development as a separate company, review the governance of the rest of the boards. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the great long debates we had about this, but the headline is that we have actually cut the number of boards as a result of that, only by one. We actually also prevented the creation of a new board, which would have increased our numbers. So we are looking to slim the central board structure and reduce our costs that way. So that is now being implemented. Looking to really good achievements during the year, because we have had some. Major achievement in school curriculum. Now, Bill Mitchell will be talking about that later on. I'm sure most of you will have seen in the news that computing science is reintroduced to the school curriculum, part of the EBAC, and will be taught right from primary level right through schools in England. That's a tremendous achievement because when the government came in, they said, quite rightly, they said the old ICT curriculum is redundant, it's got to go. So we had this prospect of losing computing from the school curriculum altogether. Through Bill's efforts, with a lot of partners outside, and I won't go into the detail, we've actually succeeded in getting it back in, and getting it back in a big way. I mean, in effect, computer science will be the fourth science to go along with three traditional parts of school. So that's a tremendous achievement. I have to say, I mean, just joking about, we do all this work in the background and it doesn't get noticed. And then somebody like Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, comes along, gives a speech saying, I cannot believe that the UK is taking IT out of their schools, a great pioneer country in terms of computer science. And all of a sudden the government take notice. So I think they would have done anyway, but it just looks like that to us at the time. What we now, of course, have is a challenge in terms of making this happen, because the problem in schools is, are teachers capable of teaching either the old or the new curriculum, the more challenging curriculum? Bill will be talking about that. In terms of recognition of the IT profession, and that obviously is our big mission long term, we've made some really good progress during the last year. The big headline there really is recognition within government IT. Just at the end of last year, the government CIO and the CIO Council, and that's the Chief Information Officers of big government departments, issued a joint statement, and Adam Thilthorpe, our responsible director, said he couldn't have written it better himself. Basically, it's saying that all those CIOs who, between them, have thousands of IT staff, are signed up to professionalism and are encouraging their IT staff to join a professional body, which we hope will, in the vast majority of cases, be the BCS, and therefore will no doubt want to be using our professional development services a great deal more. So it's very early days for that. All we have so far is a statement of intent, but we now need to build on that and actually drive up our membership in not just central government and not just the big departments, because actually they're kind of the tip of an iceberg. That whole iceberg is the rest of the public sector, where you've got many thousands more IT employees, and also the suppliers to government, because if those kind of standards are being mandated within the department, then the next step is to mandate them in the contracts they let. So we're very hopeful for long-term growth of both status and membership as a result of that. Moving to the private sector, we've now got on the professionals board an advisory panel, and that includes the public, but also some big private sector employers there, private sector CIOs, who don't have the time or probably the inclination to come and sit on our main boards, but are willing to come along for short panel meetings, give us a sense of direction of where we should be directing our efforts in order to attract group membership schemes from big employers and driving up professional membership. So that's going very well. CITP, our gold standard qualification. I think last year we had the Irish Computer Society signed up to awarding CITP, and just recently we've concluded our agreement with the IET, so we have another major engineering institution in the UK awarding, or able now to award CITP. And that's together with a processing agreement with some other bodies such as the Open Group, which again provides some partial certification. So we're driving up and attempting to continue to drive up the status of CITP and obviously the number of CITP members. Moving on to policy and influence. Policy Hub up and running. I hope everybody here is a subscriber to Policy Hub and that you are contributing to the consultations we put out. Recent policy statements on cloud, agile, one we're working on, Internet of Things. So we're into hot topics, and indeed with Internet of Things, a very, very important topic for the future. And we need to be in there creating policies, enormous issues over privacy, confidentiality, but we need to be in there influencing. But we are influential. I don't know if anybody here actually went to BCS, that I can speak earlier on, but there was a press announcement by the Minister on cyber security. I don't know what the announcement was, but they chose our building to actually make the announcement. And that just, tells you that we're in there pitching. We're very influential in areas of, for example, cyber security. Another area we've been majoring on in the last year is entrepreneurship and innovation. We have a very active group doing lots of good things and helping startups with the kind of help they need in order to get going, and all us older people can help the youngsters with startup, we hope. It's quite interesting. I mean, another example I was going to draw on, I'm going to be careful of time here, is the NHS, where again we are very influential. You may have noticed recently new advice on safe record keeping. Patient records was published. That's a joint effort between ourselves and the NHS. We've got the big health conference coming up in April with the Secretary of State speaking. We are increasing our influence in lots of big and small ways, especially in government. And I think the big point there is that this government particularly felt that they'd been let down by IT suppliers, and we all know the reasons for that. And so they're looking to us as the leading professional body to kind of fill that gap in terms of policy and advice. And we're obviously seeking to do that. Right, I'm running out of time. So what about the new year? Well, the funding problem is not going away. We've had a number of new initiatives. I mentioned some of the bigger ones last year. We won't have as many new initiatives in the coming year. We need to simply build on what we've done already. Things like the government IT profession, there's an awful lot of things got to follow from that. And we simply can't afford lots of big initiatives. It just is not possible financially. But we will continue that activity of engaging with employers and driving up membership through group membership schemes and other things like that. One thing we have recently committed to is Sapphire Level 3. You probably know that CITP is Level 5, which means that if you're a young professional, you've got an awful lot of career to get through before you're really likely to be contending for CITP. So we've got for a long time, we wanted a Level 3 qualification. We've been in discussion with a big charity, the Gatsby Foundation, and they are looking to fund what they call IT technician. We don't like the word technician, but they are looking to fund that, and we've been in conversation with them about that. It's It's taking a long time, we're not quite there yet, but we have committed in Trustee Board that if that external funding doesn't happen, we will still go ahead. Level 3 is so important to us, we need to go ahead and have another IT standard, another IT qualification to offer. A number of new resource offerings. I mentioned their CPD. David is talking about that. David Evans and Tony Daly are talking about that later, so I won't steal their thunder, but that again is a great resource to have, especially for people in early or mid-career. I talked about Sapphire 3, by the way, we're also looking at Sapphire Level 7 for the CIO community as well. Working with government, I've really talked all I need to say about that. Just a couple of statistics which came out yesterday on our membership. Our average age of membership is now 41, which you might be surprised that it's actually that low. In fact, that's 6 years less than what it was 8 years ago. It's 47. Average age was 47 8 years ago. It's now 41. So that's quite an important trend, and one we need to keep at. I'm just going to talk on my last point there about inclusion. The other statistic there was that on new joiners, 8 years ago, 14% women, it's now 22% women. So that, again, is a great trend which we need to keep working away at. The other thing on inclusion is we set a target on our boards for female membership. But the other thing we've started is unconscious bias training, which if you're a branch chair, you'll undoubtedly be invited. I'm not sure whether it's happened yet, but invited to participate in that. I do encourage you to come to the training or receive the training electronically. We're insisting on that for all our board members, all the central board members. We need to do more in that area. If we can't be an exemplary organisation in terms of inclusion, then, you know, who can? So we treat that as being very important, and I would encourage you, I say, to take the training that's offered. Right. Last point though about communications. It's been a long-standing issue for the central boards. Do we communicate well with members, with the outside world as well, but with members particularly? One thing, another statistic I picked up just recently is that in terms of the outside world and press visibility, last year was our best year for 5 years in terms of numbers of mentions in the press, and the proportion of those mentions was a positive, very good statistic there, which I think, you know, certainly in my year, we're going to try and do better. But communications within the institute is always an issue, very diverse membership, very geographically spread, and so on. We're determined to improve that. You saw the Twitter feed there today. I've got a Twitter account, probably the best president to have one during their presidential year. So please make use of, and also the other thing is on LinkedIn, we've got some pretty active, effectively blogs going on LinkedIn as well. So do look out for both Twitter and LinkedIn. Because again, they will be the kind of media which are attracting younger membership. Right, I'm going to have to stop pretty soon. So, about my theme for the year. I guess everything I've said up to now probably indicates why I want this to be the theme. What we've done it was one thing I picked up, you know, when you're deputy, you tend to pick up one or two little projects or part projects. So I picked this up a couple last year. And one of the things we did was we had a consultation going online. Some of you probably contributed to it. Thank you to all those who did. And it's still available actually, and I intend to just revive it for some more consultation going forward. But clearly, as an organisation, we're not very joined up in the way we approach young people generally, but students and young professionals. It's an issue that's tended to get diffused among our boards, and if one board thinks another board is doing it, then that's the problem. So we need to treat it as a holistic issue, which is what we're now doing. We want to do, and I'm just moving down the questions, there are the kind of questions we asked on the web consultation, and so you can still see those if you want to. Our positive proposal is to set up, as a trial, student chapters in universities. There will only be a limited number at first. We don't have funding for it. As I said before, we are very limited on funding. We're going to have to squeeze out some funding from somewhere else. But I'm quite determined that when, at least by the start of the new financial year for BCS, in September, then we will have that funding and we'll be able to conduct a limited, evaluated trial with a small number of universities, led by David Evans and the membership team. It is obviously, setting up student chapters is something that's going to cost a certain amount, although we get some funding from universities. We certainly do want branches to be involved. In terms of what students want, perhaps more than anything, they want help in getting their first job. And our members, most of you have been there, you've done it, you can do the mentoring, and you may even be able to put them in touch with local employers. So there's a great deal we can do in our branches. So we do want to make it a cooperative effort. And we will see, we'll have to see how the trial goes. It will cost us in the long term if we roll it out to, what is it, 100 institutions in the UK alone. So that's going to be a big effort, and we don't underestimate the implications, if you like, of rolling that out. But other organisations do it, and we must try at least. So that's the purpose of the study, and that's really what I wanted to say about it. Just to sort of wrap up, because I must wrap up quite soon. On the, well, I'll just go through the conclusions, which is, as I say, in the last year we've had some significant advances in a difficult environment. The main theme this year will be to continue with those. Continuity, increasing income and membership, and then the theme for the year of engaging with students and young professionals. And the thing I wanted to say there was, if you think about the different things we're doing, level 3, CPD, student engagement, and also something I said earlier about making us relevant on the hot topics of the day, whether it's Internet of Things or agile development. By putting all of those together, we've got, I think, quite a compelling offer for young professionals and students. So it's not just a student chapter programme, a university chapter programme, it is putting together the offer for young professionals and making us more attractive and getting more membership in the library. So that's really what I was to say. Final point there, let me know if I can help you. I've also already been to various branches. I'm very keen to come and support things like student competitions, which go on in different places. I see we've got Coventry speaking later. I went to their awards last year. It was a great event. Went to the Graduate in Leeds, which is another great event, and running here. So, and I've already signed up for some others. So please let me know. Subject to availability. I'm retired. I've got time. I'm very happy to come and visit branches. So there